There was a woman he once knew, or at least he thought he knew her. She was the kind of woman whose presence stirred. Something ancient in him, not loud, not forceful, but deeply felt. The kind of presence that speaks more through absence than through sound. In the beginning, she moved like water around his fire, soft, nurturing, warm. She gave her words freely, with eyes that listened before her mouth ever opened. She gave him space to become the hero he needed to believe he was. But as time passed, he stopped listening to her softness. He began mistaking her openness for availability, mistaking her words for weakness. Because the masculine, until it matures, often fails to recognize the sacred in the subtle. It is conditioned to chase noise and only notice the silence once it's gone. And then she went quiet, not in anger, not in punishment, but in revelation. What he didn't know, what most men never know, is that silence is not emptiness. It is transformation. When a woman chooses silence, she isn't disappearing. She's descending into her shadow, into her soul. Carl Jung wrote that every human must confront their shadow to become whole. But for her, this wasn't theory. It was survival. She realized she had been speaking from her wounds, pleading from her patterns. She had been explaining herself to a man who had never learned to hear beyond his ego. And so she stopped. She stopped explaining her value. She stopped performing for love. She stopped handing out access to someone who hadn't earned her depth. Silence, you see, is not the absence of love. It is the return to self. She began to study him not through confrontation, but through stillness. She saw how his need to dominate conversations masked his fear of vulnerability. She saw how he weaponized detachment not because he was strong, but because connection terrified him. He had never met his anima, the inner feminine within himself, and so, when he met her in the outer world, he couldn't receive her. He could only project his brokenness onto her canvas. He called her too emotional, too much, because her presence triggered everything he hadn't yet faced within himself, and she had finally grown tired of being someone else's projection. In the silence, she began to transmute. She faced the loneliness she had feared. She stared directly into the void, that hollow ache that once made her settle for half-loves and lukewarm promises, and she smiled. Because the void did not devour her. It freed her. This, Jung called individuation, the sacred process of becoming whole, of no longer living from persona or pain, but from essence. She no longer needed to speak to be understood. She no longer needed to convince to be chosen. She had become the embodiment of the feminine mystery, magnetic, sovereign, untouchable. And now, he noticed her silence like a wound. Men like him are not destroyed by loud exits. They're destroyed by the quiet ones, by the ones who do not slam doors or scream, the ones who vanish inward, who choose their inner peace over external validation. It is in this quiet disappearance that his ego collapses, because the supply is gone. The mirror has been removed. The woman who once reflected his worth back to him has stopped playing the game. And now, he remembers every word she said, and too late. Now her silence echoes louder than any argument ever could. Now she is irresistible. Not because she changed her face or her voice, but because she withdrew her energy, because she reclaimed her power from the noise, and in doing so, became the silence he can't escape. Pause. Music swells gently, then softens. You see, this isn't just about him. This is about you. You, the woman watching this, who feels the pull between expression and withdrawal. You who have begged to be heard by someone living behind emotional armor. Your silence is not defeat. It is your return to wholeness, to gravity, to the part of you that does not beg. She beckons. Become her. Let your quiet unsettle the shallow. Let your absence speak where your words once screamed. Let your soul be felt, not explained. Because the moment you choose silence, you become unforgettable. Music fades out slowly. A single bell chimes. End screen suggestion. Slow cinematic zoom on a woman standing alone on a cliff at dusk. wind in her hair, completely still. Words on screen. She didn't leave, she transcended.